You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, everybody, especially our elite squad who are paying for it. We thank you, don't we, Doug?
Absolutely. Hooray.
And that's Sidekick Doug from the Rational Capitalist, theratcap.com. We're going to talk about the left and how they are psycho-religious fanatics. But first, I wanted to mention to Doug, because I don't even think he knows this, with this episode, we are officially 1 year. This is our 1 year anniversary episode.
See, we celebrated that last time, so now we get to celebrate it again. We
didn't really celebrate it. I said, I think it might be, and then I looked it up. So our first podcast was on the 10th.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
So this is officially our 1 year, and I really liked it. I'm going to re-listen to our first podcast. It was pretty generalized. It wasn't a current issue, and I thought it was pretty good. I was really happy with it when we got it done. The topic was just a general kind of discussion about the culture and comedy.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what we debuted with. Here's the title: The Good News About Comedy and the Culture.
The podcast, it's gotten much worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
We started with really good aspirations, be comedic and like cheerful and positive, and now we're just grousing.
Now we're Hannity. This is my Hannity impression.
What? Yeah, you can't tell the difference.
You can't.
It's uncanny.
You're right. That's his cadence. Like and when you listen to that, that's how I feel when I'm listening to him. Like, I'm just cringing and tense.
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad about this because he's a big conservative pundit consumer. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you're in their house and it's like Fox News 24/7 on the TV.
Nice. Love it.
And because of the election and stuff, and this was in Florida, I didn't mention this. I guess I said this last week. I was on vacation in Florida when all this was going down. And of course my dad's a Florida voter. So he and his wife we have to listen to Rush today, so you guys can come over, but we're going to have the radio on from noon to 3. And they had that on and then Fox News on with the volume down. That's the kind of household that my dad has right now.
Now, you didn't find any ballots, like just driving down the road, or like you're at a McDonald's or something, you go in the bathroom and there's a box of ballots somewhere.
Really kind of weird. Ballots were everywhere. Those Democrats, I guess they don't know they're supposed to put them in the ballot box.
I think they were all Republican ballots.
They were growing in the grass like flowers.
Right.
So, I forget what my point was.
You were at his house watching Fox.
Yeah, so we had this discussion about Hannity because he feels the same way about it, although he does watch Hannity. But we talked about how different Rush is, and that Rush is like, he's so benevolent, and really his podcast is more informative and less lectury. Mm-hmm. He doesn't, he gives opinions, but he does it more in a weaving storytelling way. He's not just kind of preaching at you, and he's trying to inform you about what the left is doing, and the way he informs you about that is how he sort of ends up expressing what he thinks about it. Because he's kind of sarcastic, and he's more humorous, and anyway, much better style. I could listen to that, but I can't listen to Hannity. Ugh. All right. Let's do jokes, because we got one. Joke man called in a joke. Here it is.
The president was paying for a trip to Japan, and being aware of the custom of removing one's shoes before entering a home, he asked his staff to get him a pair of loafers for the trip. The day of the trip, 2 congressmen showed up ready to go. Bye.
That was good. I was not expecting that. Good one.
No. Was that a vacuum cleaner?
Are you listening to my... Yes, my maid is here right now, and that, unfortunately, was the vacuum cleaner. I said to her... This is so funny. I had an au pair who was Spanish-speaking. She was from Colombia. And so we have this maid who comes, and she doesn't speak English. She's probably illegal. I don't want to say that, but, she doesn't speak English. And she's really sweet, but, I'm in California. You get what you get. You get what you can get. I've been... Anyway, I had Sarita here to communicate with her. So, Sarita's gone. I got a new au pair. She's from France. And... obviously she can't communicate with this person. So I was saying to Maria today, hey, I'm sick. I don't know if I said this. I have a stomach virus. I've been sick. I've been kind of laying around in bed all day. I can't believe I'm sitting up doing this podcast. But I said to her, so don't make the bed. I did a bunch of laundry. I was like, don't fold the clothes in there, because that's just going to take her so much time. And then she's not going to get the rest of the house clean. And she did both of those things. It's like, yeah, I can't communicate.
By the way, I think I'm going to send ice over to your house. It sounds like you're employing, how many different countries of people are you employing? You need interpreters over there.
I know. I was thinking that, so the first au pair, now I've been sick, so we really have had to have nanny help. And unfortunately, that's just where I'm at. Like, I can't take care of my daughter, so I have to have kind of help. And I really like having the live-in help, and they're available. When you're sick, it's like you can't schedule when you're not going to feel well. So I don't know when it's going to happen. And having someone who lives here, they're more flexible. It's not like a 40-hour-a-week, 8-hour, I work from 8 to 5 and I go home to my own family. No, they're here for the cultural exchange. They want to be part of your family. They get closer to you. They bond with you. So anyway, the first one we had was French. The one I have now is French. Both of these girls are anti-Muslim, Marie Le Pen. Like, I didn't order one, but I got two Frenchies who are completely on my side politically, as far as like that kind of thing. And I was thinking that I should have them on the podcast to discuss, because the reason they are is not very philosophical. Neither one of these girls is a big thinker.
It's just experience.
It's experience. You should hear the stories that these girls have to tell about what it's like in France right now. Awesome. And I was thinking I should do a podcast where I have both of them on to just chat about it, to interview them and you can hear it straight from them, what it's like to be in France, to be French in France, and see what's happening to the country. It's like 14% Muslim right now, which is more than England even, and we're hearing all those horror stories out of England. But, By
the way, when you said two French au pairs, I thought maybe you're turning your house into like a porno set or something like that too.
That sounds like Ben's influence on you.
It is. No,
4
it's
weeks
just
with
the male. It's just the male mind.
You're disgusting. Okay, so our theme today, because we had all these subjects and they kind of revolved around this, is leftism really is a religion, and it's becoming more and more obvious. And there are some pretty serious signs of that out there right now. For the one big one are the fires here and the governor's response to them. The fires, it's pretty clear and pretty evident to everybody that it's bad forest management that caused these fires. Everybody knows it. The environmentalists in California run this town. They run this state. This is an environmentalist's heaven. Everything you do goes through 80 layers of environmentalist bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. And there are no more straws here. This place, not just with the laws, but definitely with the laws, but also culturally, it's extremely environmentalist. So now, of course, the whole place is burning down because you're idiots, Actually, I'm sure they're happy about that. They probably look at that and think, great, we're burning man to the ground, But even though trees and deer go with it, they don't care. They like to see those houses on fire.
My son keeps saying they wanted to protect the tiki-tuku bird. I don't know where he got that, but he keeps saying,
he made that up.
Yeah, he's like, oh, we have to protect the tiki-tuku birds.
You're teaching your son well, Doug.
He's like a mini-me. I love him.
So Governor Brown comes out and blames it on climate change deniers, which is just like saying heretics. Deniers is the new heretics, or sinners.
Yeah, he's chastising the non-believer.
The non-believer.
The infidels.
Yeah. You non-believers are responsible for these fires, which are, Mother Nature is getting even with you.
Well, our original sin is carbon footprint, because we have to use the earth. So we have this original sin called carbon footprint. And just like the Catholics or the Christians. And so we have to constantly, all we can do is live with our sin and ask for penance and absolution from the Church of the Left. And if you deny it, you're a heretic.
Yes. And that's why we're having the state is burning down. Like, it's hell here. And
ironic.
Yeah, it is ironic. Anyway, this year I didn't have to evacuate, but last year I did. For 11 days I was evacuated. It's like a serious deal. A lot of people have lost everything. People have died.
The climate heretics now have literally caused a state of roasting and boiling the earth.
Right. We are
as a result of their sin.
We are the devils. And that's exactly what that comment just evokes for me is you sinners, it's your fault. When the science is showing, no, it's really actually not, first of all, deniers. And we live in the most environmentalist state around. Like, there couldn't be a more, the whole place is majority rule Democrats, and they're all serious environmentalists.
But Sonny, it's not enough. That's the problem. It's never enough. Unless human beings all cease to exist.
Right.
That's when we'll be in a state of purity with nature. And by the way, the Wall Street Journal had a great editorial where they were saying there were like 130 million trees that died over the last 7 years. And they can't remove these trees because of these environmental policies, and they can't engage in these like forest management, logging, or controlled burning, or anything.
Can't use these trees for anything good, like building homes or furniture or
nope, just leave them.
Wood fire. Yeah, nothing for men. Just leave them so they burn down and destroy everything that man has built. And any animals are just kind of collateral damage, I think, to that.
And by the way, why do people move to California? Because it's dry and it's sunny all the time and it rarely rains.
Right.
What the hell do you think is going to happen to an overgrown forest in those conditions, especially with the winds, the Santa Anas and stuff? I mean, it's so stupid.
And you add to that the spark, which is the government, it's the DMV of electrical companies.
PG&E.
And their shitty infrastructure caused the big fire last year that killed all those people in the Santa Rosa Valley and had me evacuated. It was from they found out eventually it was a transformer or a downline or something. I mean, it was just one of these their crappy infrastructures causing a lot of these fires.
So you have a mismanaged government utility in a state completely burdened by environmental regulations, with hundreds of millions of dead trees providing combustible fuel for a forest fire.
Yeah.
But we can't burn anything because that would be bad for the environment. And we can't allow people to burn leaves or do controlled burns or log because that's so evil. So instead, you have a raging forest fire that's killed, dozens of people, like spewing. Apparently, there was some chemical base that got hit by this, and they think there might be radioactive particles in the sky now. I mean,
that was the one.
Talk about an environmental disaster.
The one by Malibu, it hit some sort of munitions plant, some military munitions warehouse or something, and so a bunch of shit was in the air. So yeah.
And part of this is not them not. I mean, obviously it's philosophically evil, but part of it is just not being able to do a cost benefit as a religious sect, because you might say, well, you know what? It's not great, and from their perspective now, we don't like logging and we don't really like controlled burns and these kinds of things. But you know what? It might prevent an even bigger environmental disaster later. No, can't do it.
Can't do it.
Zero tolerance.
And
that's it.
I mean, really, the laws they're dictated by the extreme, they're really the I don't know what to say, that they're not moderate environmentalists.
Right.
They're emotional fanatics, and they're the ones that create the policy here. So, that's just one example. And then the other thing that happened that people are kind of laughing at, and I saw it as ominous, and people are laughing, and while I'm, I never want to turn down a laugh, I actually think it's good for us to laugh. I think that this is actually serious, in the sense that we should mock it, but it's freaking real. And that is Ocasia-Cortez protesting her own leadership. So she wins the election. She wins election to the House. Within a week, she's part of a sit-in protest at Nancy Pelosi's office, the leader of her party, the leader of her congressional house. And people are like, ha, they're eating their own or whatever, but I'm sorry, but so what I was telling Doug, and he's not a Game of Thrones fan, but here's what I'm going to go through, kind of a lengthy description here. Doug, stop me if this is too lengthy.
Okay.
But I'm a Game of Thrones fan. In Game of Thrones, there's this, what Ocasia-Cortez reminds me of is this high priest in this story. She's the more extreme version coming in and taking power. And she's letting Nancy Pelosi, the more flexible, the more moderate, the corrupt, but corrupt in a way that at least she's not a power-seeking ideologue.
She plays ball. She's an establishment politico that is somewhat flexible.
I see Ocasio-Cortez as more like a Chavez. She's power-seeking, but she's doing it in her philosophy, her ideology is more pure and more consistent.
Yeah, she's a true believer.
Yeah. So it really reminded me of the High Sparrow in Game of Thrones. So in Game of Thrones, the world starts out where you've got kind of like a Henry VIII kind of situation where you have a king that's not great. I mean, I guess Henry VIII was great. Maybe somebody less great. But sort of neutral. He's okay. People like him. He's not mean. He's fair. But he's kind of, whatever, he's fine. And then sharing power with him is the church. And the church is run by establishment people who aren't very religious. They're religious, but they're not fanatics. They're flexible. They're purchasable. They work well with the king. The king dies, and his son takes power, and his son is a psychopath. And he's really mean, and awful things start happening, and the psychopath's mother's kind of a psychopath, and she starts kind of running things too, and things are taking a really icky turn. And so it creates all this chaos in the kingdom, and a vacuum happens. A vacuum of power, I'd say, and some discontent within the populace. And so in comes this priest with a group of Antifa-style thugs that are these kind of pure religious people. They dress like monks. They're barefoot. They have cut into their forehead the symbol of the symbol of their religion, their aesthetics almost. And they come in and they just sweep right into town and take power. Like nobody can oppose them because they're the pure version of the religion. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how to stop that. They don't know how to say, no, we're not going to have you, because they've given up the moral high ground.
They're unassailable because they're considered morally idealistic.
Morally ideal, that's right. And that's what's going on with the left. You do not want Ocasio-Cortez in charge of Congress. You want Nancy Pelosi. I mean, as icky as that is to say that, you know, people have this idea that, oh, it'll get worse and then things will get better. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. We just want to keep the world as good as we can for as long as we can. That is the goal. As much freedom as we can for as long as we can. And if we get to move the needle toward freedom in our lifetimes, that's great, you know. But we're really just holding back the tide. And she's a bad sign. Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, they're a really bad sign. Things are getting much more religious. They're getting much more fanatic, much more emotional. And you see that on the street with the fighting and the Antifa and the, you know, these Antifa thugs, they think they have the moral high ground. They preach that they have the moral high ground. The press treats them like they have the moral high ground. It's okay to punch a Nazi. Never mind that no one's a Nazi.
Right, they're beyond reproach. And we see this throughout history, that the side that's most ideologically consistent and the most radical tends to win, even if they're overpowered by, you know, the majority, because the wishy-washy establishment people never, you know, they can run things for a time, but they can never excite or energize people the way people that are regarded as morally idealistic can.
It's not just the excitement. I think it's yes, there are people that are excited, but those people are freaking psychopaths. Like I was watching today, maybe I can find it and actually play some of this. I was watching a video posted by MoveOn.org of this protest that Ocasio-Cortez was involved in. And this guy, this kid, you know, another David Hogg type of person, was speaking with all of this emotion. And it's gross. Like, I'm watching this guy and I'm like, ew, this guy is, first of all, he's faking all of this. This is like a guy whipping himself up in a frenzy. It felt very religious and very emotional. And maybe that was my motivation for talking about this today, because it really did feel very, very emotional. And so I just, here, maybe I can play some of it.
The bullets and blood. Politicians plant seeds of fear and hate. Those seeds turn into bullets and blood. Now I know that too. So I listened to my dad cry, and I felt afraid. And then I grew up.
Oh, like the oh, great advertisement.
The whole universe is coming to our event.
Thanks, Facebook.
Capitalism.
God damn it.
That's ironic.
Last year I was the chair of the High School Democrats of America. I wonder if you remember, this past June, Speaker Pelosi, you came and spoke to us. I wonder if you remember how well dressed we were, how serious and attentive.
Oh, you're well dressed.
How serious we were about fixing these problems. Because we have endured bullets and storms and fires. Because we've had to grow up one too many times. Speaker Pelosi, Democratic leadership, we are asking you to grow.
We have endured bullets and storms and fires. This fucking punk. He has no idea what it's like to actually live. Like, he's out there in fucking New York talking about the fires. Right? I'm sorry. Has your house burned down, kid?
Oh, no, he's probably, his dad's probably a billionaire on Wall Street.
Right. Yeah.
Poor guy.
And I mean, he talks for 6 minutes like this. Pelosi, and you come and you're well dressed. I mean, he's bashing her for being well dressed. You're not pure enough. You're too well dressed. As if Ocasio-Cortez is not even more well dressed than Nancy Pelosi.
Well, yeah, she had a $3,000 suit on.
$3,000 suit and an ad. She got a lot of crap for that. She got a lot of crap for that. Where I think she might, because her followers are socialists. They don't think she should be wearing and Nancy Pelosi doesn't get crap for her $3,000 suits because they know that she's one of these players.
So I just wanted to mention a couple things. One, it's not a coincidence that these people are resembling the kind of like antics and rantings and ravings of mad, primitive religious sects. They are, they have this orthodoxy that they pass down from academics, and they have excommunication for heresy.
Right.
There's violent stifling of dissent from outside infidels. And it's all associated. They even have, like we said, their original sin is carbon footprint, or now whiteness. Remember, whiteness is now.
And by the way, that idea, which is fairly new, I don't know if you remember when the white privilege. I don't know. I don't want to interrupt your train of thought here, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Continue.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is that, and it's necessary for them to create this existential guilt for your sin. Mm-hmm. And what is your sin? It's slavery. It's some sort of, these victimhood, these various victim categories are the sins for which we should feel existential guilt as white people or as Americans, either for your footprint and the despoiling of the environment or for social injustice. So there's this constant haranguing of people and making everything into a political guilt, a form of political guilt. And how do you do penance? Well, so people are constantly, and the people that nod their heads and go along with this nonsense are those that are ripe to then exact penance from the guilty. And how do you do that? Well, it's going to be through taxation. It's going to be by acceding to new environmental regulations and accepting your share of sacrifice on behalf of the earth.
This is exactly what my point was, is you've got this crazy fanatic psycho, you've got the acolytes, the monks with their, in the case of the Game of Thrones, they have weapons, and they're the monks that are willing to fight. And the High Sparrow is this pure man. And they're supporting him, and they just sweep right in because not because they're able to recruit people to their cause, but because, they do have people. They have the psychopaths. But it's because good people look at them and go, well, who am I to judge? They say they're so good.
There's no alternative. It's so like either moral. The milquetoast establishment or these grand, idealists. Like, which side would you pick if you didn't know any better? Right.
And I think that this mistake is made too, like how to fight them. The mistake is really made on the right in our current schism, which is, oh no, we have to have civility. You don't understand what you're dealing with. You cannot be, I sound like Hillary Clinton. You can't be civil.
No.
With people, it's not just, I can be civil with people who want to destroy my values. I actually can be civil if they're talking to me. But what is happening is these people are religious fanatics. And sure, there are some religious fanatics on the right. But I don't really see them as a cultural force or a problem. I don't. It's point to one that's causing problems right now.
Right. No, it's not the religious that are burning down campuses and, threatening free speech.
I just read a story of a city council guy from Seattle. He withdrew his candidacy because his family was targeted so viciously. His wife works at Microsoft. They were clamoring for her job.
Oh my God.
His children, they were writing hate. People who have children who go to school with his children were attacking the children on the school's Facebook group. The children of a man running for city council who happens to be a Republican.
Wow.
So he withdrew. He's like, I can't do this. And he said, it's not that I'm going to stop fighting, but there's just got to be I have to fight in a way that doesn't jeopardize my family, my kids and my wife.
Yeah, well, two things. One is your point that you can't really be civil. Like, there was a time when the liberal was open to discussion. You might have
that time was not that long ago.
It was like 20 minutes ago, as Tucker Carlson likes to say, where it was like, okay, we care about people. We don't want to see people dying in the streets, but, let me explain to you why the government has screwed up healthcare so much, and why return to a free market would be the solution. And you could sit down and have that debate, and you might not agree, but whatever. It wasn't like they considered you a Nazi for believing that. And now we've gotten to this point where that's not the case at all. I mean, if you don't virtue signal immediately that you're with the program, you're a heretic that needs to be burned at the stake. There's no discussion. There's no search for causes or solutions. I mean, it's not even close to that. These people are
no, it's not even
fanatics.
Close to that, and it's getting purer and purer and purer. That is what Ocasio-Cortez represents, a purifying of the cultural left. I mean, and I see people on my side just kind of being like complacent, like they're not really fighting this, and they think that I don't know what they're counting on, because what you're doing is you're sitting back and you're letting people walk all over you. That's what you're doing. You're letting these crazies take over. How do you think you defeat them? You're not going to defeat them with a better argument. And you have to have the arguments, but you need to be willing to take action. So it's not about talking to death. And talking is an action. So, but I do think that, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but what we have going on is fanatics and thuggery on one side, and that needs to be recognized. And those people are taking over. They are taking over. Antifa is embraced by the left. There isn't a single person, well, there are some people who have condemned certain instances. Like I think a lot of people came out and said, oh, whoa, you can't go to Tucker Carlson's house. I mean, that was pretty roundly condemned. But a year from now, it won't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Antifa wasn't condemned. Did they condemn Antifa?
No, just their tactics.
Just that tactic. Oh, I don't think that was a really good idea. And
in fact, one of them even came out and said, I can't really defend Tucker, but it wasn't a good tactic. He literally said tactic.
Yeah.
I want to make a couple points and relate this back to some other things we talked about, which is, in the case of the High Sparrow, it sounds like that too is a society where you have this, milquetoast establishment, and then you have these idealists, which are, are congruent today with the leftists that are regarded as morally ideal. And what we're not doing by not standing up to these people, like even the people like the big tech, where there's this big argument on the right about what actions are appropriate to take against these so-called private companies, in terms of action you can take to stop them from censoring, is the moral outrage. Here they're inculcating this sense of victimhood and sacrifice, right, through identity politics and through their entire narrative about Western civilization. And here we need to stress the morality of mutual voluntary cooperation and trade, the joy of purposeful and productive living in a free society, discovery, productivity, creativity, entrepreneurship, all the things that we value. And that's where morality is. Morality is in living a purposeful and productive and happy life, voluntarily cooperating with people, not with this kind of victimhood and collective sacrifice through identity politics and cultural Marxism. And when you say something, when you're on the right and you dismiss the actions of the Facebooks and the Googles or whatever you see out there because, quote unquote, they have a right to do that, you're missing the point. That's a moral outrage.
Yeah, right.
Maybe we can't do this, or maybe we can't do that, or maybe it's a tactic we shouldn't use to pursue one line or another. But you have to roundly condemn this and stand up for the morality of our side.
You really do. And so the latest is that BitChute, which is the predominant YouTube competitor. They were, PayPal dumped them. And that's probably just the beginning. So yeah, do they need PayPal to operate? No. Did Gab need a hosting service and PayPal and Master? Yes. They found a new hosting service. They're back up. They lost their URL provider. GoDaddy dumped them. They had to find a new host for their URL. I mean, they've made it difficult for people on the right to do business. So that does have an impact. And also, it stops people on the right from starting businesses.
Right.
Because
chilling.
Oh, well, fuck it. Like, why should I start a YouTube channel? I'm just going to get shut down anyway. When I started my YouTube channel in 2010, the feeling and the vibe was, oh my God, I can say anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like, this is my outlet. Like, I can say whatever I want, and if people like it, they can have it. That was it. And that's
that lasted 20 minutes.
Well, it didn't. It lasted longer than that. But unfortunately, in the last 2 years, because Trump won, they are trying to crush us. And they're succeeding. So you can't, it's not supporting Trump, although you should frickin' support Trump at this point, because it's coming down to, I'm sorry to say this, and I don't want it to be this way. I want the old Democrats that you used to be able to talk to. There are certainly some that you can, like Dershowitz and Sam, what's his name? What's his name? Harris.
Sam Harris.
And people like that. But, overwhelmingly, even the moderates like Nancy Pelosi do not condemn Antifa. They do not, they're tacitly supporting these people, and they're allowing them to come in. We are now our culture is ruled by the SJW mob. Our social media culture is ruled by them. People lose their jobs because of the SJW mob. And people in big companies lose their... Like James Damore at Google lost his job because of the SJW mob.
Oh, yeah. And you have to be careful in certain businesses and industries. If you are just even known to be a Republican, you can probably get fired.
Yeah. You're on
in Silicon Valley.
They'll find a way to
absolutely.
Get rid of you. They'll find a way to get rid of you.
Absolutely.
It may take them 6 months, but... it'll be some other reason, and they'll come up with a lie and an excuse like they do. I worked at a place, I think I told you guys, I worked at Wells Fargo. I had a contract. I think I might have told this story on a past podcast. A week before my last day, I was a contractor, management consultant, working on a big project. The project was over. It was my last week. They'd planned already my going away lunch with everybody, in the department. Mm-hmm. And they found my videos. And at that point, I didn't put my videos under my name. So it was purely accidental that somebody stumbled across them.
And these weren't sex tapes. These were like
comedy videos
political
on YouTube. Yeah, political commentary.
I mean, these are political comedy. It's not
by the way, fairly charming humor, like nothing crazy.
Right. Can't do that.
The guy running the project was a real lefty fucker. And anyway, he told me the next day, after I knew that people in my department had found these, he told me the next day that I was fired, that I needed to leave. And the reason was, budget reasons. I mean, it was just a total lie. For budget reasons for 4 more days after a year. Fuck you.
Can't afford you.
Jerk. Wells Fargo can't afford me. So, yeah, I mean, they lie. They don't care. They lie.
Yeah, they're very...
I mean, I was just a contractor. He could have just said the truth. But he didn't. So he's a coward. A little weenie coward if you're listening, which he's not. But he probably wears black clothes and a mask on the weekends.
Yeah, like the brave hero he is. He wears a mask.
Right.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, I just think that it's getting to be... I think the first thing you have to recognize is that this is a religious movement. It is not just a political movement. And it's sort of like, when in Godfather 2, I was bringing up this example when Michael Corleone sees the Cuban rebel blow himself up and take a cop out. And he says, they ask him what he thinks of that. And he says, it tells me they can win.
Right.
And it means when you see someone who's engaging in behavior like this, that's so extreme and so radical to the point that, they're clearly willing to sacrifice themselves to do anything. It's a level of desperation and a level of mania that you have to take seriously. I mean,
we have to take this seriously. It is, and it's not negotiable. And I'm not saying let's crush all the Democrats. What I'm saying is we need to crush this group, these fanatics. We need to say, no, that's not acceptable. Ocasio-Cortez is not an acceptable move for the Democrats. Keith Ellison is not an acceptable move. I was really glad to see Alyssa Milano back out of the Women's March because of Linda Sarsour. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't see this? Yeah.
No.
She
Good.
wrote on social media, I cannot be a part of the Women's March this year because of the anti-Semitism at the top. And the top is Linda Sarsour, one of the organizers, and another organizer, I don't know her name, but she's part of the Black Lives Matters people. And she has a tight relationship with Farrakhan.
Wow.
So, and they blew that stuff off. It's, whatever. Farrakhan
no big deal.
Stuff, he just says stuff. Linda Sarsour is a Sharia law supporting Muslim woman who hates Israel. So Alyssa Milano, who's very left, she's the one who launched the Me Too movement. And she said, I'm not going to be part of the Women's March this year because of the anti-Semitism. And Deborah Messing, she's in every one of those stupid PSAs.
Yeah.
So she's really an activist. She followed suit. So that's the kind of thing we need to support. We need to support the Nancy Pelosi. I think Trump is right to support Pelosi. He's like, it should be Pelosi. He does not want to see the crazy fanatic with the mob in charge of the House of Representatives.
Do you think there's an argument that it's almost like the Democrats at this point, we're on this road for, eking towards, slowly drifting towards socialism under, these establishment politicians. Mm-hmm. And now we've got this rapid acceleration where we've gone from, middle of the road Democrat types to Obama, who now seems like a conservative, relatively speaking.
He was way more conservative when he ran. I mean, the stuff he ran on.
Seriously, yeah, absolutely.
Which was controlled borders, like a path to citizenship that was pretty conservative. Yeah,
he was very anti-immigration, or at least immigration restriction.
Yeah, he was
not anti-immigration. What I mean?
No, he wasn't anti-immigration. He was for a strong
legal
border, but he was even for amnesty and citizenship. But he even said with the amnesty people, they have to wait behind the people who've already legally applied.
Yeah, he believed in the rule of law and that we had a border.
Yeah. And
so we've gone from that to suddenly we've accelerated to where we actually have real Chavez, Castro type socialists entering the Congress.
Or the Somali who
right. Sharia
supporting Muslim is also in the House from Minnesota because 100,000 Somali refugees is not a good idea. But it's not even just them. They're not the ones that swept her into office. It's the white, guilt-ridden left in Minneapolis.
Yes. Oh, and they love anything that's not American.
Anything that lets them
traditionally
say,
American.
I have virtue.
And that's so ironic that, the Muslims are more conservative than the most conservative religious rightist in terms of their views on homosexuality, traditional marriage, and not to mention the more draconian aspects of Sharia law, like stoning adulterers and stuff.
Women are not even second-class citizens. They're not citizens. They're they don't
beat
vote,
your wife.
They don't drive. You can rape them. If they complain about it, they get harmed.
And you cover them in a garbage bag.
They can't go to school. I mean, that is what these women support. They won't admit it, but they do.
Well, that just goes to show you what they really believe. Because they're obviously not for, why aren't they, we hear, you hear these campaigns for getting more women into the Congress or more minorities or whatever. Yet when, the black guy runs against Debbie Stabenow in Michigan, do they support the black conservative? Or do they support, a female conservative running against some white guy, some white Democrat somewhere? Of course not.
No, it's all ideological. It's all about the religion.
But it's not even consistently ideological, because Muslims are like completely antithetical. Like the Muslim ideology is completely antithetical to supposedly what they stand for. But when you think about it, I guess it's consistent because they're religious and they're I guess it's anti-Western. So as long as it's anti-Western, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
My point was, I was going to ask you if you think that this acceleration to this extreme, is there something positive about it in that, maybe Americans, instead of drifting slowly, it's like, holy crap, we've got a real problem here, we've got to step up?
Yeah, I hope so.
It doesn't have to be, but
I hope the common sense American starts to get freaked out. But, when I see Ocasia-Cortez does her little protest, and I see the majority of the right is kind of laughing and thinking it's a great sign, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? We need to oppose this. We need to help the Democrats oppose the mob, the fanatical mob.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a part of what we need to do. And I'm not exactly sure how, but we need to support, unfortunately, Icky, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, against the Ocasio-Cortezes.
And, I think at some point, maybe if Trump gets voted out, I think because he's in power, you're not seeing the right mobilize like we did during the Tea Party days, where you felt you were really being suffocated because Obama was the president and they had the House, and it was like, oh my God, and you had 1 million people show up in D.C., and now it's happening on the other way. So I don't know what it's going to take to get people in the streets. I think if they steal these elections in Florida, I almost think that's like blood in the streets.
Yeah, they are stealing the election in Florida. I don't see anybody in the street.
No, it'll probably just happen.
It's just going to happen. I remember
it's already happened.
I remember when Franken did that in Minnesota. He stole his Senate seat, and everybody knew it. They found a box of ballots in a trunk, and they were all Democrat ballots. Whoa. So
no need to follow up on that.
A 1,500-point lead disappeared to a negative 400 and some 500 lead with that one box from a trunk.
Yeah.
Pulled out at the after the election was over.
Whenever it's close, there's a trunk of ballots somewhere that have all Democrat votes.
And they're all ballots from mail-in ballots that should have been counted and weren't. So and they're all against voter ID. Oh, voter fraud doesn't happen. No, they know exactly when to deploy the voter fraud. I don't see Floridians in the street. Do you?
No, because most of them have walkers and scooters. So you might see scooters in the street.
I was on one of those scooters.
I know, you know it well.
Yeah.
This is your crowd now.
Yeah, right. So my joke today that I was going to save for the end, and this is sort of the end, but we can go on. We had one more topic we were going to cover, but I'm going to tell my joke now because it kind of goes to your point. So here's the joke. I was so depressed last night that I called the suicide lifeline. I got a call center in Pakistan, and when I told them I was suicidal, they got all excited and asked me if I could drive a truck.
Yeah, I knew where that was going.
Yeah.
The suicide line in Pakistan.
Right.
Do you want to hear my joke, or you want me to save it?
Well, let's hear your joke.
All right. Why did they?
Where's this? You made this one up, right?
Yes, this is original. This is a Doug original. You get about one of these a month because that's about how creative I am.
Yeah.
All right. So why did they burn Joan of Arc at the stake?
Why?
It's illegal to shoot heroin.
That's a clever pun there, Doug.
Hey, every month or two.
That's an intellectual pun.
Is it?
Yeah, you have to know Joan of Arc. You have to know the word heroin.
Yeah. Okay.
In the other sense.
So you're saying that this is a high level.
It's a high level. That's a high level pun joke. I like it. Good job. It's a high level dad joke.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the space I occupy. Making high level, like that's not really a dad joke, but it's kind of a dad joke spirit wise, but a little more savvy to it. So
good job. Yeah. So the last thing we were going to talk about, and this is kind of a throwaway topic because I don't really have a lot to say about this, is nationalism. It's all over the news that Trump said he was a nationalist. And then you got the French Prime Minister, is he a Prime Minister? President?
President.
Came out and said nationalism is, evil basically and racist, and it's the opposite of patriotism, which is like wrong. So there's arguments about, like, is nationalism good? Is it bad? I think it's nationalism versus globalism in the same way that it's like federalism versus states' rights. It's kind of a similar philosophy. That's how I see it. I don't think it's good or bad on its face. You could have states' rights in a more of a, like, every state is a little dictatorship kind of situation. So I don't know, I don't really think of it as like, I think of it as kind of neutral. Or maybe in today's world, it's probably a good, because I don't want to be in a globalist society with a bunch of savage third world religious freaks. I don't.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's unequivocally, in today's context, I think it's unequivocally good, because what it is meant today to distinguish nationalism from this open borders, everywhere, one world, we need some gigantic United Nations government under, like international law, and, the United States isn't special, or your country isn't special. I mean, what Trump meant, I think, and certainly I think what most people mean by nationalism is intelligent patriotism. It's, I believe, my government's job is to protect me and my interests and the interests of our country, not to protect the Congo or China or anybody else. It's to look out for America. And oftentimes that means a win-win situation. If we deal, if we have a trade deal, then, we hope to have a win-win trade relationship with friendly countries. But if there's bad actors out there, then it's our government's job to disassociate, to protect us from them, and to even embargo them if they're bad enough, or to stop trading with them. So we did, during the Cold War. Right. And to not only that, but to believe at a more fundamental level, we're connected, especially in the United States, by ideas. I mean, that's, a lot of different people, e pluribus unum meant out of many one. It means there's people from all sorts of religions and all sorts of walks of life and different races and ethnicities, but we all share the American ideal, life, the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And that's what binds us as Americans. Right. And
it's not, that's why, like, this bullshit that it's racist, I don't think anyone is saying, let's round up, here's what the Nazis did. They said, oh yeah, we love Germany except these Germans because they're Jews. And they rounded them up and they killed them. And nobody's saying, we're America first except for the black ones or the Jewish ones.
Right.
Nobody's putting a race on this. It's Americans. And why is it Americans? Because we have to protect ourselves from bad people in the world. And we live within the boundaries of America, and we're Americans. But more than that, we can be patriotic and we can love what we've created over here, which is the freest country, or used to be the freest country. It was certainly founded on the idea of individual rights, and thank God for our checks and balances and our free speech and our Second Amendment. I think the only thing really that differentiates us now from the other basically socialist countries is the mixed economies of Europe and so on, is our free speech and our Second Amendment. And
this idea that this type of nationalism is associated with racism or chauvinism is a complete smear.
It's such a smear.
To people who are intelligently patriotic. You know, if you love America because for the good things about it and the values that we all share, that's absolutely rational and it's wonderful. And to smear that as being, you know, somehow associated with racism,
it has nothing to do with race.
Total
it's about
smear.
Loving individualism. It's about loving rights and the freedoms that we have here as people, as individuals, all of us.
In fact, it's the opposite of racism, as you said. I mean, it's, you know, because you believe in people as individuals. I mean, the American spirit was treating people as individuals first, legally and morally, that everyone has a shot, you know, that no one is above the law.
I'm talking about Americans. I'm not talking about the world. We don't owe a shot to everybody in the world.
Right.
I mean, that's a whole other show, the immigration discussion, which we've had before. But whatever your stance on immigration, although I think that if you believe that everyone can come here tomorrow, if they want to, you are a globalist. I think that's globalism. It's certainly multiculturalism.
Yeah, you have no...
You don't distinguish between what, you know, because you don't care that America keeps its culture. You don't care if we're overrun by a billion, take your pick. Indians, Chinese, Africans. And I'm not saying I hate Indians, I hate China. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm in America. I don't want to live in India. And with a billion Indians, we would get India. We would get we would get that politics. We would get everything about India. So you can't have a billion. And I mean, I know that that's kind of maybe is that hyperbole, saying that a billion would come tomorrow? But the point is just
not at all. It's not hyperbole. It's absolutely the right principle. I mean, you can't change the composition of the electorate. I mean, that's not the government's job is to represent the people who elected them.
We have a right to our system of government. We have a right to that, and our social, our culture. Anyway, and the West does too. And I mean, just look at what has happened with the EU. When these countries thought that they would be independent, they thought that it was going to be like the United States of America, where they had, the old way, where they had rights as states, part of the European Union, which would just kind of be this small, it would just make things more efficient. And instead it has blown up into this giant bureaucracy, of course. And they've let in all of these bad actors, a lot of bad actors. And you're seeing a lot of rape, and you're seeing a lot of crime. And I will have my 2 French girls on to talk about that specifically, what that's like being in France and how it's scary. And one of them is from Fontainebleau, which is just south of Paris, but she had planned to live in Paris. She moved there. She lived there for 4 years and left. She's like, I can't live in Paris. I'll never live in Paris. It's gone. And she ended up moving here, but you know, her love of Paris, it's gone. She can't live there. And the other one is from the north of France, where there are a lot of Muslims, and she cannot dress the way she wants to dress if she wants to walk down the street in safety. And that's happening in Germany too. So they have let in a lot of bad actors. Such a mass number that they actually have power there. And that's the problem. So, I don't know. Why are we on the immigration issue? The point is that nationalism is fairly neutral, although probably today it's actually a good, because we do need to assert our right as Americans to protect ourselves, our way of life. And it's not like I heard somebody compare it to like people who live in a town and they want to like stop, they don't like change and they don't want people to move in, and it's not like change from burger restaurants to falafel restaurants. Like if that were the only change, yeah, you probably should just shut up, you know? Eat your damn falafel and your kids will get used to it. But that's not what the change is.
No, it's a change in the composition of the electorate, the people who are making the decisions about those laws and about the institutions that we rightly created, in the tradition of the American founding. And people from other countries are a threat to that if they don't share our values. And so before we let people in, you have to make sure that those people, that you have a mechanism to ensure that the people that are coming in share those values, or you're importing people that are hostile to your institutions, and that can overturn them and change them. Yeah. And that becomes an invasion, not an immigration.
That happen in Europe. We're absolutely watching that happen in Europe. I mean, that woman was just, she appealed or whatever, and she lost her appeal. It is illegal to criticize Islam.
Yes.
In the UK now.
Yep.
Illegal to blaspheme Allah. And here, if you do it, you might get blown up or shot. So you have to be careful, but you can still do it. The government's not going to come after you, just the jihadis.
Right. And the
government won't protect you. Like
that's Antifa, 20 minutes away too.
If you're a Republican, Antifa will come after you, and the government won't protect you. So part of this is we need to demand that the government protect us from these mobs. We need to help the Democrats against the Ocasio-Cortezes, as distasteful as that is. And as Republicans, as right-siders, because I know I'm like a registered independent. I'm an objectivist. I have a lot of libertarian listeners, objectivist listeners, conservative listeners. All of us need to kind of unite against that group, those people, no matter what they're doing, and recognize that they are a huge, huge, powerful force on the left right now. They're running things. So they're running things culturally and soon politically. They're taking over more and more power.
Yep.
Anyway.
Push back.
That's it for our show today. La 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 la. Happy. Did we sound too much like Hannity?
We've got a full show for you today. News is jam-packed. Let me list all of Trump's accomplishments.
Bunch of crappy things happened. Let me tell you about the latest outrage.
We are sort of outrage merchants, though, you have to admit.
We have been lately. We need to change this up.
Yeah, we should get into some more, bigger picture topics.
Yeah, let's do it. History
ideas.
Yeah, we'll do it as soon as I feel well enough to plan a week in advance. Actually, I do have some interviews that I've been working on setting up, so that is coming up. And I don't know, I'd like to have more guests on. Let's get more topical and less current issue-y. And everybody knows it sucks out there. We don't need to say it every week, right?
Yeah.
Although I think that our point today is really good. I really think this is a good point and an important point that not enough people are making. And by the way, Ayn Rand made this point a lot, that the left is mystical, that the left is religious. So read Ayn Rand, get more of that. And that's it for our show. Thanks to each and every one of you for listening. We really would like to hear from you. Comment on our video at YouTube or on the Facebook page. You can find Doug at, as I said, The Rational Capitalist on Facebook or theratcap.com. I'm on Facebook at Sunny Lohman. What else? Comment on this podcast wherever you find it. Call in a joke, 707-681-5834. You can also comment on our voicemail. If you're enjoying the show, consider joining our elite squad on patreon.com/House of Sunny. We're completely fan-funded. You can help us out for $2 a month. Go to patreon.com/House of Sunny to join. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded. And because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.